Hi, my name's Carla. I want to tell you a story that is really hard for me to talk about. How one encounter and one conversation can turn your life into chaos. What can I tell you about myself? I'm just a teenager who lives in a big city. I have no siblings and only communicate with my parents and friends. A lot of friends, though. In a city with millions of people, you could be a loner only if you really wanted to. I don't like staying home, and after school I always hang out with friends. No matter where. In Central Park, at coffee shops, in malls. I like hanging out and was never scared of crowded places, even when I was a kid. At that time, I once was lost in a shopping mall. Well, I wasn't really lost. I was just following a cotton candy cart. My mom looked for me for a long time, and when she finally found me, she cried and even yelled at me. I think that was the only time that my parents had ever been that angry with me. Usually they're very kind and tender, but that day my mom was really scared. She thought I had been kidnapped. So I'm an ordinary teenage girl, and now you're probably thinking, what kind of story is she going to tell me? It's the story of stalking and kidnapping. At least the kidnapping of my serenity. Well, I spend a lot of time in crowded places, and I can't really know when it all began. We don't really remember specific faces in crowds. All of them sort of merge into a single background. I seldom look at people passing by or wonder who is sitting at the next table in a coffee shop. And I guess people don't care about me the same way. How can I explain what I sensed that day? I was sitting at a coffee shop with my friends, eating a gigantic portion of ice cream, and I was being watched. I turned back and caught the eye of a middle-aged woman. She had a nice but not remarkable face. Modest and clean clothes, no makeup or jewelry. The only noticeable thing was her long, old-fashioned braid. One of my girlfriends giggled about her ridiculous hairdo. At this very moment, I felt uncomfortable, but then I returned to my ice cream and forgot all about it. But I was soon reminded. This time I was alone sitting in my favorite park, completely absorbed, reading about my favorite hero's adventures, and suddenly glanced up from my book. A nearby bench was occupied by the same woman. She still looked inconspicuous, but I recognized her braid curled around her head. The woman was looking straight at me, but when she noticed that I saw her, she looked somewhat embarrassed and soon left abruptly. I was a little surprised, but after all, it was Central Park. If there was any place in the world where you might meet a stranger for the second time, it's probably right there. But the situation kept repeating itself. I began to notice that damn braid here and there in the masses of people that surrounded me. Or was it just my imagination? I felt confused. I didn't understand how this could be happening. But I saw this woman at the park, at the coffee shop, at the mall, and even walking by my school gates. What should I have thought? I felt really scared when I saw her coming down the stairs of my own building. She quickly ducked down when she saw me, but it was her. I didn't dare talk to her, and instead hid behind a door. I swear, if it were a man, I would have already called the police by now. But I didn't want to look stupid if all of this was some sort of confusion. I started to look for some reason behind these bizarre encounters. I live in a high-rise and I just don't know the faces of all my neighbors. The meetings in the cities could have been no more than a coincidence. I met the stranger with the braid one more time on a narrow side street where I usually go to dump the garbage. It looked like she had been waiting for me. I couldn't stand it anymore and threw the garbage bag straight at her. She dodged it and kept staring at me in silence, and I started yelling at her. "What do you need from me? I'm calling the police." The woman shook her head and said, "Oh my God, no, Carla, please. I am your mother." I was shocked and speechless. I probably screamed at her that she's lying and ran home, but she managed to give me a piece of paper with a phone number. I did nothing for a few days, but then I decided to talk to my mom and dad. When I finished my story, their faces suddenly became stern. They asked me about everything in detail, as if not even noticing that this conversation hurts me. And they didn't deny anything, just suggested that I not call that woman. Because if she'd been a good person, why would she have left me in an orphanage? I didn't know what to say. We love you, Carla. You are our girl, they added when we finished talking. And I love them too. I didn't throw away my birth mother's number, but I've never called her. Should I be offended by her? I don't really understand now who has offended me. The one who abandoned me and then showed up so many years later? Why? To ruin my calm, prosperous life because she finally decided to see me? My mom and dad. Why didn't they tell me the truth? I grew up thinking that we were of the same blood, finding likeness between us. But now I see how different we are. My life has turned into chaos, and I don't understand what I can do. But there is one thing I know. I love my parents, the ones who brought me up and spared me from the life of an orphan. As for the rest, I simply need time. I was honest with you. And what about you? Do you have stories to tell, just like mine? Mail them to us if you want to see them animated on the channel. Who knows? Maybe it will help you to overcome your own problems.